Thank you very much and good afternoon. I am Bill Hall. I am a commissioner from Lincoln County and I'm a member of the Housing Alliance. Today, 20,000 socks were piled on the state capitol steps during the Oregon Housing Alliance's Housing Opportunity Day rally. Those 20,000 socks represent the 20,000 school-aged children and thousands of others who experienced homelessness last year. The socks will be distributed to service providers serving those experiencing homelessness around the state, but we're also using them to remind legislators of what they can do during this session to meet Oregon's housing needs. Legislators can and should act to meet the immediate needs of those experiencing homelessness and to address the systemic and resource shortages that contribute to a lack of affordable housing. Today, for Housing Opportunity Day, 200 housing advocates from every part of Oregon are meeting with state legislators to speak about the need for increased resources to make sure that Oregonians have safe, decent, affordable places to call home. Housing advocates are making the case for immediate resources to meet critical needs and for game-changing long-term investments to increase Oregon's housing supply. Our success meeting goals as communities and as a state start with having homes to wake up in and to return to at night. And I'm going to go very quickly through some of the key features of the Housing Alliance agenda. $20 million in funding to the Emergency Housing Account and the State Homeless Assistance Program. The EHA provides rental assistance funds or other resources to help prevent or end homelessness, while SHAP provides funds for homeless shelters. This would be an $8 million increase over last biennium. $5 million to ensure the continued success of the Oregon Foreclosure Avoidance Program, which provides essential information, counseling, and legal support to homeowners facing foreclosure. $20 million in lottery-backed bonds to preserve currently affordable homes. And new investment of $100 million in the development of new housing opportunities for families living on very low incomes, especially those who may be at risk of homelessness. This is an important first step towards securing Oregon's future success. $100 million will help us work together to meet the statewide needs of 50,000 new places to call home for Oregonians with lower incomes. It will set in motion work to meet other essential housing needs. It will allow us to test new partnerships and approaches across the range of Oregon communities. $100 million will build homes, providing stability and smoothing the path to individual and family success. It will also create jobs, strengthen communities, and improve our ability to meet state policy goals in education, health, and economic opportunity. Oregon's success begins at home. Oregon's future begins at home. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Representative Jeff Reardon from Happy Valley.
Thank you, Bill. I am Representative Jeff Reardon from, I usually say Happy Valley and Outer East Portland. And I've been very concerned about housing issues. And I think that started actually before I got here, when I was teaching at David Douglas High School, and realizing that we had a high percentage of students that were homeless, meaning they were couch surfing, they were sleeping in a car, I don't know. But you can just imagine how difficult it would be for that student who would come to school hungry and living in a very insecure situation, and how could you really expect them to do very well at all? So that was some of my first awareness. After getting on the the ABC work group, I learned that this was not just a local issue. This was a statewide problem. We had testimony from Bend, where the vacancy rate, thank you, is less than 0.5%. Meaning, so you cannot get a home near where you work. You might have a job in Bend, live in Redmond, and those are lower income people who really can't afford it at high transportation cost. We heard the same issue in Pendleton. We heard the same thing on the coast, where somebody might live in Toledo, have a job, and have to drive 10 miles into Newport. Again, low-income people, it's a super challenge. I had a more recent reminder, and I attended an evening session, probably, I think 2 months ago, and it was in Outer East Portland, and it was sponsored by an organization called ERCO that works with immigrant families and tries to help them transition through education, through housing issues, all the challenges that they face. And they were very well attended, probably 100 people that were there. Out of that 100, and they were talking to us specifically about their housing challenges. Saw pictures of apartments with rain dripping through the ceiling. Couldn't get it fixed because the landlord wasn't motivated, didn't care. They had so much demand for those apartments that the landlord didn't have to be responsive. The landlord could, without any notification, kick the tenants out. If they complained about the rent, the fact that it had been raised month after month, didn't matter, kick them out. We'll get somebody else in there. So this lack of housing just makes it very easy to abuse some of these folks that are really having some of the hardest challenges. Out of that group, I would say 100 people easily, there was a hero. And that hero was, I think her name was Rosie, don't quote me on it, but just the cutest little lady. She was the only one in that entire group that had managed to purchase her own home. She was like this rock star in that community. And we need more rock stars. We need more people that have that chance. They're working hard. They want to contribute to our economy. They want to be successful in education, and they need just a little bit of help. So as far as the work group goes, we did identify money is a huge issue. As Bill mentioned, we have probably 50,000 units that could be built in this state. What an opportunity that would bring. We need to get some more money. Bill mentioned a couple of specific asks, try to reduce the cost of debt. We are looking specifically at trying to find ways to get more land to build on, and then looking at some of the policy tools, what sort of zoning can be done, if there's anything that can help there. What can we do to help the builders, maybe streamline their processes a little bit? So lots of things that we're working on. We'll let the other folks get a little more specific about those. So I'm very pleased that I can help with this process. I know it's not a short-term fix, but I think we have a number of issues that we're working on, a number of bills we're trying to get through the committees, and I'm so thankful to have the housing advocates here today to work with me on meeting the needs of Oregonians. Thank you.
Okay. And now also, it's my pleasure to introduce Representative Julie Parrish, who served with Representative Reardon on the Affordability Balance and Choice Work Group.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being here today. Appreciate it. Rep. Reardon and I don't always see eye to eye on everything, but one of the things we both agree on is the need for more affordable housing. And a lot of times some of what we do in this building happens outside of the building when we get tasked to go and study an issue and engage and spend time with it. And I just appreciate Rep. Reardon for having committed more than a year of our lives to this issue, and with regular meetings, and all of the advocates who came to the table and people from across the state of Oregon who acknowledge that affordable housing is not an urban Portland issue. It's a statewide issue, particularly when we continue to have higher than the national average unemployment. We continue to have folks with hunger security issues. And in my personal background, there were a lot of times in my life where I didn't have a place to live and I didn't have a home. And what I know from those experiences, and then anecdotally in this work is from others, is that we lack shelter beds, we lack short-term housing, we lack really demographic-specific housing, which is things like disabled seniors or homeless veterans, populations who fall into housing need for a lot of different reasons. Folks who are coming back out of our prison population, people who have drug and alcohol addictions, and what I've learned from not having a home is that housing is the most leveling playing factor for, or leveling playing field for any of those issues. If you don't have a place to call your own at night and to lay your head down and sleep, you're not going to get out of a drug addiction. You are not going to deal with your mental health needs. You are not going to have quality wraparound services if you're that elderly or disabled Oregonian who doesn't have a place to live, or that it does not have a permanent place to live, where we can then come and help provide those services. So I appreciate the work of the committee because while not everybody agrees on every tactic on how to solve the problem, I think this is the first time in a long time in Oregon's history that everybody was around the table. People who wanted to be there got a chance to participate and engage. And of all of the items that got put up on a big whiteboard that were issues that we all addressed, there were at least 24 items that had no contentious issues around them at all, where people said, hey, we can come back to these issues, session after session, and as long as Rep. Reardon and I are here, we've made that commitment to continue to be engaged in this. We've got the package of small package of bills that came out of that session. We know that there are other things that we can flesh out some more in subsequent meetings and then come back in another legislative session with additional policy concepts around those things. And then, those things that people didn't always agree on, I think that there's still, even in those things, room for common ground. So if we solve housing issues for folks or help move towards solving housing issues for Oregonians, then some of those other social service issues start to ebb and go away as people have the security of a place to live. So our kind of co-chairs in partnership here, Janet Bird, John Chandler, kind of coming at it from different ends of the spectrum, both a builder and advocate side, really put a lot of effort into this, and I just cannot, thank them enough, and the staff who tracked all the meetings and things. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of personal time and commitment. Most of the people around the room doing so in a volunteer capacity and outside of the scope of their normal daily jobs. And, that's how good policy in Oregon gets made. It's when people with very disparate interests come together and say, we care about the same outcome. Tactically, we may not agree, but let's get to the place where we can agree and then bring good policies here. And hopefully the rest of the 88 colleagues we have and our new governor will certainly agree that housing should be a priority as the basis for all of our social service issues and needs. And solving that should start now. And we also looked at things like food deserts and access to quality schools. And we know that all of those things are part of the conversation. But I think we first have to think about how do we get the funding? What could that look like? And then what are the policies that need to happen so that when we do build affordable housing, people in low-income communities are not just tucked into a corner of a city, that they are integrated and in our communities, have access to quality schools, have access to healthy food, have access to health care. Those are all priorities for me, certainly, but they were also echoed in our committee. And I just, again, thank the people behind me who put in a lot of work and hours, and, people like Janet who've given their lifetime to this effort. And, now finally, I hope she understands the legislature's listening. So thank you.
Now I would like to introduce Martha Olmstead with the Community Action Team in Clatsop County. Oh, Martha did not make it? Okay, so Janet Bird, who is the Executive Director of Neighborhood Partnerships, which is the convener of the Oregon Housing Alliance, is going to wrap things up for us.
Thank you, Bill. So, as Bill mentioned, we had 20,000 pairs of socks on the front steps of the Capitol today. And to answer the question, why socks? Socks, we wanted people to not only think about the 20,000 students that were homeless last school year, but we wanted people to sort of take a minute as they acted to purchase socks and think, who am I buying these socks for? Am I buying for a little baby who is in shelter with their mom and dad? Am I buying for a young girl who maybe the bright colors would make her day a little happier? Or am I buying for somebody like a Street Roots street newspaper vendor who needs to be outside all day in the rain and cold? And so a nice thick pair of wool socks would do the trick. We wanted people to stop and think about who we're talking about. We're talking about us, we're talking about our neighbors, we're talking about our children, and we're talking about our future. We cannot do anything to succeed in the state of Oregon unless we take care of our housing needs. We can't succeed as students, we can't succeed as employees. Folks are driving from Lapine to Bend over icy roads, treacherous conditions to get to work because there's no housing in Bend that's affordable to folks making anywhere near a modest income. Folks drive over the Coast Range to do service work in Lincoln City, service work in Manzanita, and cannot afford to live on the coast because of vacation rentals, other demands that are taking away the housing supply. So what we need are big investments in housing. The $100 million that's in the governor's proposed budget would be a great first step. We also need immediate assistance, as Bill outlined. So socks to remind us that these are our neighbors, socks to remind us that we've got a big job to do. So thank you very much, and appreciate your time.
Any questions?
This might be somewhat of a technical question, but I recall when some of reporters met with Speaker Kotek, she said she was interested in advancing the amount proposed in the governor's budget, but that there were some questions about whether the state could use bond money to invest in properties that would not be owned by the state, presumably. So
that is a good question. There are technical questions about the specific mechanism of bond that might be used.
is the amount the right amount first? And then you can talk about the other.
So the amount, the proposal is for $100 million that would act as equity, cash into projects. So that's a good start. It's depending on all the other questions that need to be answered and the kind of leverage that we could get, it could be a significant number of units, a really big, bold first step. And so we're excited about that. It's not going to meet housing needs across the state of Oregon. For that, I think we might need to get something bigger and bolder, closer to the transportation budget of $6.5 billion. This is a big investment in infrastructure that we need to be talking about. But it's a great step, and it's the best, biggest, boldest thing we've had for housing since 2009, when the state passed a document recording fee. On the specifics of what kind of bond we use and whether that triggers a requirement for some state ownership, we have seen general obligation bonds used by the city of Portland to purchase housing. They have worked out the kinks in that mechanism. We've got a lot of really creative minds in the housing world who are familiar with different kinds of equity structures and ownership structures. And so we're confident that we can work those details out.
That's all I have for the time being.
Okay, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks.